What unites kings, geniuses, athletes, and ordinary people? At first glance, Alexander the Great, Peter the Great, Michelangelo, Pushkin, Ben Stiller, David Beckham, and an ordinary couple, Marina from Podolsk and Sergei from Tyumen, have nothing in common. Different centuries, different destinies, different talents, but all of them have walked through the same hellish fire. Gout, podagra, a disease that quietly crept from ancient palaces to modern apartments and now spreads faster than stroke. Over the last 27 years, the number of diagnosed cases has grown by 5.5%, and doctors speak of a worldwide epidemic. Gout, the trap for the leg. The name itself is uncompromising. Translated from Greek, podagra means foot trap, and when it snaps shut, you understand why. Imagine night, complete calm, and suddenly a blow of pain, sharp, absolute, like a drill into bone. The big toe turns red, swells, burns like fire. You can't touch it even with a sheet. Hours stretch like eternity. What's happening? The joint is filled with crystals of uric acid, sharp like needles. They stab from the inside. Usually the big toe is the first to fall, the coldest, most stressed joint. But gout is not picky. Wrists, elbows, knees. Anywhere crystals settle, there it will strike. Where does all this uric acid come from? Purines are the culprits, small molecular firewood that fuels life itself. We need them. They help build cells and provide energy. But when the body receives too many of them, mostly from food, the balance is lost. Red meat, sausages, liver, seafood, red wine, chocolate. A festive menu for the stomach, but a funeral march for the joints. Normally kidneys filter out excess uric acid. But if there is too much, or kidneys are weakened, the blood becomes oversaturated and the acid settles as crystals. Why some people have normal levels and some get a tsunami? Because each of us is a chemical laboratory with its own rules. Genetics, lifestyle, kidney health, obesity, diabetes, dehydration, stress, all mix into one unpredictable formula. A question that scares many. Can you die from gout? Yes, indirectly. It increases the risk of stroke, heart attack, and destroys kidneys. And the biggest tragedy, people often treat it incorrectly or ignore it, believing it's just a swollen toe. But there is good news. Gout is curable, not magically, not instantly, but scientifically and reliably. Diet changes, drinking enough water, correct medication to lower uric acid, pain and inflammation management during attacks, blood monitoring, respect for your body. Because gout is not about punishment, it's about responsibility. In short, gout does not choose by rank or wealth. It unites czars, artists, athletes, and ordinary people. It teaches health is the greatest empire, and each of us is its ruler, or its destroyer. If you want, I can continue with a funny version, gout as an evil villain, a scientific summary in bullet points, lifestyle recommendations backed by modern medical guidelines, a storytelling style script as if for a YouTube medical show. And beer, by the way, is a record holder for purines. And the more purines we eat, the more uric acid is formed in the body. So it can really be said that a person himself eats a lot of purines. But for the sake of fairness, it is worth noting that only when there is a genetic predisposition. With the same diet, someone's purines develop and someone does not. When uric acid crystals accumulate in the joint to a critical level, when there are a number of other factors that have not yet been fully studied, inflammation begins. And here, Let's stop for a minute and figure out why the body reacts to inflammation. I note that inflammation is a completely natural process. This is the norm in response to the actions of an external or internal terrorist. Everyone has had a slump at least once in their life. Remember how the place around was red, sore, and warm? This organism rushes into battle against an internal terrorist. Slumps. In the same way, inflammation makes the body react to bacteria, viruses, or infections. Usually, inflammation helps to overcome problems. But the depletion of uric acid is a terrorist that develops a very strong inflammation in the joint with a high level of pain. And the gout begins, which can end with joint deformation, like Leonardo da Vinci, disability, and even death. Come on, you say. You can't die from a joint inflammation of the thumb on the leg. You are right. The gout does not threaten life directly, but it can lead to serious complications, which will become fatal. If the treatment is wrong, or there is no treatment at all, the gout can lead to a chronic kidney failure. And this is already a ticket to the boat of Karen. But do not panic. After all, the gout does not immediately beat on the kidneys. The first stage of the disease is acute. During the attack, a sharp pain occurs in the inflamed joint. The joint literally burns from pain, cuts off, and turns red. Then there is the second stage of the disease, the intercritical, or, as they also call it, inter-attack period. That is, the time between attacks. At this stage, the disease, like an extinguished fire, slightly fades away. The acute pain subsides, but the gout reminds of itself by violations in the work of the joints. Such a period between attacks can last for months or even years, but the gout does not pass by itself, and the pain in the fingers comes again. Attacks occur more and more often, and the gout goes to the third stage, the chronic one, and the fire burns with a new force. The chronic gout is not desirable for the enemy. These are constant pains in the joints and their deformation. And the reason for everything, let me remind you, is a high level of uric acid in the body. And uric acid hits not only the joints. The kidneys, which work to wear out, suffer and try to remove the excess plus. The excess of uric acid can lead to the formation of stones in the kidneys. But I have already scared you with the chronic kidney failure. It is proven that the gout can cause increased blood pressure and cardiovascular diseases. Yes, the gout increases the risk of a heart attack and stroke. By the way, the writer Charles Dickens died of a stroke, which provoked complications of the gout. And the cause of death of the singer Yulia Nachalova was a whole complex of serious diseases caused by the gout. She was only 39. However, do not rush to throw the meat out of the fridge and switch to the green side of vegetarians. Although it is believed that those who are addicted to plant-based diet with a restriction or complete exclusion of protein suffer less from the gout, this is not so. But it is not only about excessive consumption of food with purines. If everything was so simple. There are various versions of the appearance of the gout, including genetic factors, obesity, stress, and even some drugs. Yes, the gout may appear with the right nutrition, but with kidney problems. You remember that kidneys release uric acid. Therefore, a violation of their operation can cause the appearance of the gout even if you make sure that you eat. When, for some reason, the kidneys of our body's filtration plant do not cope with the release of harmful substances, uric acid is not released. Do you understand? The connection between the kidneys and the level of uric acid works in both directions. A lot of uric acid in the body, healthy kidneys do not cope, the gout appears. In the kidneys of the problem, it increases the level of uric acid, the gout appears. In fact, the real cause of the appearance of the gout is an increase in uric acid with a genetic predisposition to the gout. But why does uric acid increase, and how is it caused? Alas, it is not entirely clear even to doctors. We figured out the reasons. Now I will tell you how to understand that you have a gout and how to treat it, and you must treat it. Even if you think that the gout is a sign of genius. How? You have not heard anything about the fact that almost half of the recognized geniuses had a gout? I tell you, in the middle of the 20th century, scientists discovered an interesting fact. Even if you think that the gout is a sign of genius. How? You have not heard anything about the fact that almost half of the recognized geniuses had a gout? I tell you, in the middle of the 20th century, scientists discovered an interesting fact. Uric acid is similar in composition to a substance that is contained in coffee and tea and activates mental activity. And now, follow the course of thought. Scientists quickly read and found out that among gifted people, from 15 to 25% of people had a gout. The level of uric acid in geniuses was increased by 20 to 30 times. It is logical to assume that since geniuses have a high level of uric acid, it means that it works in the opposite direction. But no, the gout does not recognize genius, and the level of uric acid does not depend on the intellect or abilities of a person. It's just a disease. Although at different times it was attributed mystical properties. In the Middle Ages, the gout was called a noble disease, the disease of kings, and it was believed that it protects from other maladies and gives longevity, so it was not going to be treated. However, this idea has no scientific basis and does not correspond to reality, as well as the opinion that people are ill with gout exclusively because of nutrition. In the Kremlin, for example, the disease was justified for hundreds of years, not because the Russian kings always have excess meat and wine on the table, although this too. Genetics is of decisive importance. And we can say that Peter I passed the gout on to his descendants. And now, attention, you should be sure that you have a gout and not something similar in symptoms, for example, a pseudo-gout. But what? Are there diseases that are disguised as a gout? There are. As they say, not everything is a gout that hurts. Valgus is not a gout, but a deformation of the foot, during which the bone increases and deviates, causing pain and discomfort when walking, although it seems to hurt the big toe too. But valgus appears not because of the violation of the metabolism, but for other reasons. For example, because of flat feet, relaxed ligaments, trauma, prolonged wearing of tight shoes. Valgus and gout are different diseases that cannot go to each other. Among other diseases that are disguised as a gout and have similar symptoms, I will name rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, septic arthritis, and of course, the queen of disguise, pseudo-gout. This is a pseudo-gout, a disease that imitates a true gout 1-to-1. Pseudo-gout is also a chronic disease of metabolism. Joints also inflame and hurt. But unlike gout, crystals of non-acetic acid are accumulated in the joints of periphosphate calcium. It is impossible to distinguish by eye. Therefore, the golden standard of diagnostics of both gout is the puncture of the joint and microscopy of the obtained liquid. According to the crystals, a diagnosis is made for sure. And the first thing to do is to pass the blood test to the level of uric acid.